Hi, everyone. I'm Dr. Lynn Wagner, and you are listening to The Wealthy Life. Today's episode is all about sleep, why it matters, what it is, and what happens when we either don't get enough sleep or if we do get good sleep. So sleep is not a luxury, it's a biological necessity. And I spent years of my life burning the candle at both ends, not getting enough sleep. And when I finally was educated on the importance of sleep and what it's actually doing to my system and my body, I finally made it very intentional that I would get enough sleep. So now I am known as that person who sneaks away at the end of the night to go to bed when there's a whole party going on. I just am pretty militant about getting good sleep. And when I don't get good sleep, I definitely notice a huge difference. But when you're sleeping, it's an active restorative process where the body and the brain perform essential maintenance. So it's kind of like bringing your car to the shop, getting an oil change or getting it detailed. It's kind of like cleaning out the system and the body so that when you pick that car up, it's all bright and shiny and working well and everything's going the way it's supposed to. So sleep does the same thing for our bodies. There's a lot of different things that happen. So sleep affects every system of the body. Specifically, you're going to have repair and restoration. So the gut lining gets repaired. You're building muscle. You're making proteins. So there's a lot of repair and restoration. When you're sleeping, your brain health is boosted. So it's going to improve your memory, your focus, your learning, and really importantly, your emotional balance. When you're sleeping, your hormones are affected, so they get balanced. It regulates your cortisol, it regulates your insulin levels, it regulates your growth hormone and your sex hormones. So when you're sleeping, all of those different hormones that are part of our endocrine system are either being made or balanced so that you function better as a human the next day. We all know that sleep affects our immune system. So if you've had a kid who's gone off to college, or if you've taken care of college kids like I did when I was in the emergency room in urgent care, that first semester they go away and they're not sleeping and they're partying and they're studying all the time, they obviously are more prone to infections. So they come back with mono and influenza and all those nasty infections that they come back with. So lack of sleep will definitely affect your immune system. Sleep affects metabolism. So think whenever someone comes into the clinic and they're looking for weight loss, one of the things we definitely touch on is how much sleep are you getting? Because as you're sleeping, you're going to affect, like I said before, those insulin levels, but you're also going to affect your hunger cues. So when you're not getting enough sleep, you're going to have less control of binging and overeating because it affects your hunger cues. And then your blood sugar might have instability. So if you're not getting good sleep and it's affecting your glucose and insulin levels, you're going to be more likely to have blood sugar swings that will affect your appetite as well. And then when you're sleeping, I already spoke about brain health, but with mental health specifically, it's really, really important. There's been studies that show that if you take someone and deprive them of sleep for several days in a row, you can actually put them into a psychotic state. We all know that if you have pre-existing anxiety, depression, PTSD, bipolar, you are more at risk for having episodes of that if you don't get enough sleep. And you can actually trigger someone who doesn't have those diseases into having them. I remember very well when I was working as a resident and in the ER and I was working nights and weekends and swinging all over the place. I had to be really careful with everything else I did with my lifestyle so that my mood would stay good because it was very affected by lack of sleep, and that's pretty common. And then specifically, I talked about systems and what's happening with sleep. So your systems are repairing, but your little cells are actually repairing as well. So cellular medicine is when we talk about individual cells, how they're making ATP, which is our energy currency, how they're helping detox. And those little individual cells all have a very important part in our life. And so when you're sleeping, you're actually helping those cells do what they need to do better, which is obviously really important. And then lastly, we have almost like a cleansing of the brain at night when you sleep. So your brain does a detox every night. So it's getting rid of the stuff it doesn't need and getting ready for the next day. So if we're not getting good sleep, that's another way that's going to affect our mood and our concentration and things like that, because we're not getting that nice brain detox every night. Specific diseases associated with sleep. So this is important to talk about. You can kind of assume which ones there are based on, what happens to what I said about what happens to our bodies when we don't get good sleep. But specific diseases, depression and anxiety or other mental health diseases, cognitive decline. So you're going to be more at risk for things like dementia or Alzheimer's if you're not getting good sleep chronically. Vascular diseases, so heart disease, stroke, high blood pressure, those have all been shown to have increased incidence if we're not getting enough sleep. And then obviously metabolic endocrine disorders, so things like diabetes, obesity, infertility, low testosterone, menstrual irregularities, those can all be made worse or triggered by lack of sleep. And then immune system issues. So if you are not sleeping and your immune system is weakened, that's putting you at risk for a whole host of diseases or just simple infections that we pick up on a day-to-day basis. So obviously, as you see, sleep is very important, not just to feel good, but so that our body works the way it's supposed to. that car works the way it's supposed to. So let's spend some time talking about the stages of sleep. So if you're someone like me who periodically wears a sleep tracker, you're going to see that there are different stages of sleep. So they're really broken down into two main stages. There's non-REM sleep, which is very deep and restorative, and there's REM sleep, which is where you're dreaming and your brain is processing. And we cycle through these several times a night. So throughout the night, you're cycling through these stages. So you can see if you're someone who's in bed for 9 hours, but you're getting up 5 to 6 times for various reasons, you might be disrupting those actual cycles and not getting the benefit of sleep that you could be getting if you're sleeping more soundly. So specifically in those two stages, in the non-REM sleep, where it's very deep and restorative, you start in a light sleep, and then you transition into almost like a deeper light sleep, and then ultimately you go into deep sleep. So in those stages, light sleep, obviously, it's easier to wake up, it's lighter, but as you're dipping into deep sleep, your heart rate is going down, your brain is slowing down, and then when you finally dip into deep sleep, that's where you have that really restorative period. You're making growth hormone, your immune system is resetting, so extremely, extremely restorative. Then you go into the REM stage of sleep. So that's that dreaming brain processing stage. That's when your brain is very active and your body's paralyzed. It's really critical for memory, learning, and emotional processing. So you can see how each different stage has different benefits. So if you're not getting the right amount of each stage, that can have not great health consequences. So ideal time for sleep, if you have ever wondered that question, I think most of us think of, 8 hours is probably ideal. Realistically, it's probably between 7 and 9 hours, and then there are going to be outliers. So there are people who need much less than that, and there are people who need much more than that, and that doesn't mean you're abnormal. It just means that you're an outlier and you don't follow the standard bell curve, which is fine. Best way to know if you're getting enough sleep is literally how you're feeling in the morning. So if you're someone and you're getting 6 hours of sleep a night and your tracker says that you're not getting that 7 to 9 hours, but you feel great and your other health stats look great, that's probably enough for you. So it really should be how you feel. So if you feel amazing, you have energy, your brain fires well, you're probably getting enough sleep. But specifically, if you actually look at like a sleep tracker and you're looking at how much time you're spending in each stage, for REM sleep, typically that's going to be about 20 to 25% of your total sleep. So on average, 1.5 to 2 hours. For that deep sleep, you're looking for about 15 to 25% in that sleep period. So it's going to be about 1 to 2 hours. And then for those other light stages that I talked about, you're going to be at about 50 to 60% of your sleep. So we spend most of our time in that light sleep stage, which is totally fine. But that's going to be about 3.5 to 4.5 hours. And I will put these actually on a handout so that you can have this and look at maybe your tracker and see how much sleep am I actually getting and how much do I need, and then you can make some changes to try to improve that. The other thing to know is it depends on your age and your sex. So people are going to have different stats and different necessities based on their age and their sex. As we get older, our sleep definitely changes. And I'm someone who I'm going to keep trying to sleep like a 30-year-old for as long as I can, but it is natural to have a change in your sleep patterns as you get older. That's very normal. The other thing that's important to know is that front-loaded part of sleep is very, very important. So the more sleep you can get before midnight, the better chance you have of having that good amount of deep sleep. So front loading your sleep is really, really important. So if you're that person who's going to bed at 11 or midnight, you might be robbing yourself of minutes to hours of deep sleep that you would get if you had gone to bed earlier. And then also remember, if, like I said, if your sleep stats don't look great on paper and you look at averages and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm not even close to that. If everything else looks good on your stats and you feel good and you have energy, it's fine. So you can't be married to looking at data. You have to look at how you feel and check in with how you're sleeping, and that's more important than anything else. So just remember, sleep is the most powerful free biohack we have, and it's probably the easiest thing. We don't have to go get groceries. We don't have to go to the gym. We don't have to sweat. We just have to put our head on the pillow earlier than we probably normally do to give ourselves that beautiful healing process that happens when we're sleeping. So if you want to change how you feel, how you age, and most importantly, how you function, start here, start with sleep, and you will see amazing results. So I look forward to talking to you in the next video, and we will go from there.